secret.
Okay, everybody, close your eyes and you plug your ears for just a minute. Technical time here.
Yes,
I was
yes,
going to say, did you remember to put on the original sound when you played that?
Original sound off, actually.
Okay, now, but when you put the YouTube video,
No, I didn't. Actually.
Okay, yeah, cool. Welcome, everybody. Glad you could drop in to our unrehearsed opening here. I'm Capt Ron, and with me are Diane Hansen, Eric Larson, and Dieter Staudinger. The whole complement, and we're glad to be back with you as we approach the holiday season here. And we got I think it'll be an interesting show tonight. We may leave you more frightened when you leave than when you got here, but that's okay. That's our job. And then it's good for business, and we drum up business that way. So no, seriously, we don't intend to do that. We really have you in our best interest here. So anyway, so Fearless Flight Live is our weekly show on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, the place to go if you are afraid to fly, if you know somebody who has a fear of flying, or if you just like to talk about the airline industry, a little bit about aviation. So welcome to this week's show. And I will start by sharing with you oops, I don't want to do that. Close. I want to do that. We'll start by bringing you on board here. And if you haven't, please consider joining our Facebook group. And there's the link on the screen there. It's we got to be up close.
Yeah, we're just shy of 1,500 members now. Yeah.
Oh, cool. We missed the big celebration there. Maybe we'll have to go back and see if we can figure out who that was. But anyway, this is a place for people who just want to dip their toes in the water, or want to get some serious help, or give some information out here. But we got a lot of great people that participate there. And as a matter of fact, one of them, whom I believe I remember from his participation in the class, one of our classes over in the Burbank area, and it was Miguel Oliveros. And he sent us just briefly, he posted in the Birds of Feather group, a really, really interesting video. And we've been talking about this. You know, we've said in the past that you typically don't have enough bandwidth to stream on airplanes. Well, that's changing. And look at this. We're going to turn over to Dieter and let him play this for you. So I'll stop the share.
Hold on for a second. I'm just gonna stop the share one more time because I did forget the sound.
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So
and this is a YouTube video live from his flight. So it's a little hard to understand in places, but you'll appreciate it.
So it's he sent us 3 hours ago, actually.
Okay, cool.
So he's somewhere. Hi, just checking in with the group here, letting you guys know here I am at 34,000 feet, about an hour away from landing, an hour and a half. This is my 13th flight. It's always still a work in progress. It's getting better each and every time. I want to thank each and every one of you again for all of your inspirational stories. We had some choppy air earlier. The pilot warned us about it, provided a timeline of 15 minutes moderate turbulence, but I feel like they adjusted well. I saw the plane change altitude. It slowed down, and apparently slowing down the plane makes the bumps a little bit less. I heard a pilot once describe it as.
There we go.
That is awesome. That is so. And
fantastic.
I think Miguel just earned an invitation to be our special guest as quickly as we can get him back on here. That is a first for Fearless Flight Live, and so a bunch of that, like we said, you may be able to even stream the Fearless Flight Harmonizer. Wow. I don't know about that yet, but you can give it a try now at least, and which would reduce it. And then if that's true, you can stream the 201 course. You can stream other things on there. So that's kind of exciting news on many levels here. But I'll say thanks to Miguel, even though he doesn't know it right now. But we'll try to get him on here. But he had everything. He talked about turbulence. He talked about it sounded like the pilot slowed down the airplane, which we do sometimes if we're above the optimal turbulence penetration airspeed. So thanks a lot, Miguel, and really that's fantastic. Yeah, really appreciate you doing that. Yeah. And thanks to Dieter's diligence for finding that just before he came on. So, okay. So here we go. Tonight we're going to talk about, no special guests. I guess we do. I did have a special guest, but we just weren't around. And what's going on with ATC? We're going to talk about something we've touched on a few weeks or a few times in the past weeks about air traffic control system. And there's a new an article that started out in the New York Times, and we're going to talk about that. And I hope to help you out with that. We'll mention the live group coaching coming up. Next one is on December 21st. Later this month. And we hope that if you aren't a member, you'll consider joining. Try it out at least once. And if you're in the Clear for Takeoff 201, you get the first 2 months of the show for free. And then we'll talk not so much aviation news updates, but related to our centerpiece topic tonight, the air traffic control system. We'll talk about some of the things in the news with the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg there. And of course, we'll take any questions that you might have. All right. So let me just start into this. I titled this "Crisis in the Skies: The Plight of Air Traffic Controllers." I figure if the newspapers can do it, we can terrorize you too by coming up with our own title there. And this is an in-depth look at staffing and safety and health concerns in the air traffic control industry, or part of the industry. This was the cover page off the internet for a New York Times article that came out, I think, either just yesterday or the day before, and it represents an extensive investigative report that a number of reporters at the Times did, and what they found out was the one of the things that's contributing to this, and the title you can see up there, "Drunk and Asleep on the Job, Air Traffic Controllers Pushed to the Brink." You can't get a much better head grabber than that one, as far as a title or a headline up there. And the basic thesis of the article is talking about the understaffing, among other things, at the air traffic control facilities. And it gives some statistics here. And the source of this was there are many and varied sources, but the primary source for a lot of this was reports that are filed by crew members and interviews of, I think, over 70 air traffic controllers, pilots, and other people in the industry. And what they said was from 2011 to 2022, the number of fully certified controllers decreased by over 9%. And it left 99% of the air traffic control sites being understaffed. So that's not a good picture. And we put that on in the context that we've covered. A couple of you have inquired to me in the group here about near misses, and every time, of course, one of those makes the news, it makes the news big time. And so this is an underlying issue with that. It talks about the fact that they're understaffed is the primary cause of stress there, and it exacerbates stress and fatigue, as you can well imagine. And they have, a bunch of muckraking content in here. Deteriorating workplace conditions, including malfunctioning equipment and infestation by insects, have compounded the problem. So there's a little bit for everybody there. And it's got the attention of the National Transportation Safety Board. And just for those of you who aren't familiar with the relationship, the National Transportation Safety Board is charged with safety of any form of transportation. The FAA is charged with regulating the airline industry, okay, or air traffic, not just the airline industry. And the two of them the National Transportation Board is the one that investigates incidents and accidents related to transportation, and all they can do is make recommendations to the FAA. They have no authority to dictate to the FAA what needs to be done. And I've invited Eric and Diane. Diane found a really interesting article I'm going to have her read close to the end here about some of the substance of things we're finding out here. But as I said, the source of this was more than 70 current and former air traffic controllers, pilots, and federal officials, as well as thousands of pages of federal safety reports and internal FAA records that the Times obtained, under the Freedom of Information Act. And I'm going to ask Eric, I'll put him on the spot. You've heard us talk about one of the things that is really, I think, one of the greatest advances that we made in the aviation industry, and that was these things called federal safety reports, or in the airline industry, NASA. That's the same NASA that runs the space program, and they have something called an ASR, an aviation safety report. And it doesn't matter that you can't see all that in detail, but this is something that Eric or I or Diane or an air traffic controller or a mechanic, any number of people can fill out if they've become aware of some shortfall that they've seen in the system or in the operation of their performance of their job, or if they've made a mistake and put that down. It does not protect you. It gives you a certain immunity. It doesn't protect you if you were breaking the law in any way. So it's not good for that. But it was a real breakthrough, because prior to this time, the official philosophy in the FAA was, if you make a mistake, we're going to punish you for it. And this was a gargantuan step in the direction of, if you make a mistake, we'd like to know about it. Because think about it. If you look at the airline industry, despite your fear of flying, it has gotten safer and safer each and every year for an unbridled number of years here. And if your role is to predict where the next problem or airline crash might be, it becomes more and more difficult, ironically, if you don't have crashes that happen down the road, because you can't connect the dots and come up to some kind of a regression analysis. And so this system came out, and it was brilliant in its design, because what it does is it lets me as a pilot, if I make a mistake, oftentimes they would be little mistakes, and one of the things we work on in training is how to detect your errors before they become consequential. So I could make an inconsequential error that nobody would ever know about, and it could significantly change and alter the safety of the airline industry. And so when they came out with this, it was a real leap forward. And if you contrast this, okay, to look at how really rare it is to have an airplane accident or a fatality now, it's the safest way to travel in the world. We say that till we're blue in the face. Compare that to going to the doctor or having surgery. There is no comparison. The last numbers I heard are somewhere between 400 and 600,000 deaths every year in the healthcare system. And the reason there's such a variation in that is because nobody knows for sure what the real cause was in a lot of them. And we used to joke, we get called in to talk about our mistakes, and pilots bury theirs. And doctors and surgeons bury theirs. So it's maybe a little bit harsh, but nonetheless. So I wanted to point this out I'm going to ask Eric and probably embarrass him, but are these, do you know, Eric, these are not randomized, they're made anonymous, except we're de-identified in terms of our name, but there are people who can access and find out who it was. Do you know if this is available under the Freedom of Information Act? If they can?
Boy, that I don't know, and I suspect not.
No.
It would greatly subdue the input from the parties that they wanted to get that input from.
Yeah. Well, they do. Well, that's what I say. They are de-identified. So in order to find out, you'd have to have the code, because your name does not appear on the data. So who knows?
It's interesting, because we just had our quarterly CBTs and ASAP reports. Those kinds of reports were part of it. And You said there's the big five, there's five big reasons why that they're not accepted. And then there's the little five, but yeah, if there's nothing with the big five is intentional or criminal activity and that sort of thing, then everything is all those identifiers are redacted.
Yeah.
And the example of what Ron's talking about, and Diane, the philosophical leap of the FAA to do this was incredible. In the past, if a pilot made a mistake or something, okay, we're going to do everything we can to hide this, obfuscate the truth, or lie about it, so we don't get caught. And the FAA's job was, we found out Ron and Eric missed this crossing altitude that they were assigned by 400 feet, so we're going to go over to their house and hit them in the head with a hammer. and then they find out a whole bunch more people are having trouble making what I'm calling making a cross, descending into an airport in an assigned altitude. They find out a whole bunch more people are missing this, and they go, oh, we need to go over to their houses and hit them all in the head with a hammer. Now, and I'm making a little bit light of this, but now they would have these de-identified reports, and they would say, look, all this inbound Phoenix traffic is having trouble making this crossing restriction. It gets missed X number of times per day with a great number of flights. So this has to be something other than pilot inattention or inability. How is this system designed, or where is the clearance issued that all these airplanes are missing this? And then they go backwards and go, and what can we do to fix that? So it stops the hiding of this stuff to not get hit in the head with a hammer, and to having the controllers and the FAA and the pilots sit down together and go, this crossing restriction needs to be fixed, alleviated, or we need more length between the fix prior to get down here and make it, because people are missing it in mass. And that's what Ron is talking about in terms of fixing these problems instead of essentially writing tickets.
And it's not just for the pilots. It's even, I don't want to say even for just the flight attendants.
Right.
But I had to file a report one time within my first year of flying, and I filed an IOR, which is an irregular operations report. But when in doubt, it's good for us to file both an IOR and an ASAP, because we were landing and I had a passenger in the lavatory, and everybody's supposed to be in their seat buckled up. That's an FAA kind of thing, but this individual had to go to the lab. So that's a reportable event, not an offense, but an event. And those are the same kinds of things. They look at galley events when something's unsecured and people get hurt. So it's certainly mostly the pilots, obviously, but it's kind of everybody, mechanics and everybody that are covered by this protocol.
I have a quick question here from Margaret. And so how often do these incidents occur? Is there anybody who keeps track of that?
Yeah, and to further add to this, this is the national NASA NASA. What's happened now, this was so successful, and I can't give her any numbers, but the numbers are large, okay? And they were so large. This has been back 25, 30 years ago, when in the midst of my career, when I got into human factors. And what was happening is the NASA was collecting all these forms from the different carriers, and the airlines couldn't even get the data back because NASA didn't have enough people to process them all and use the information. So American Airlines was the first one. So they started their own internal program, got it approved by the FAA, and now, as Diane was telling us before we started the show, every airline's got their own now. So Diane doesn't have to fill out a NASA report anymore. She fills out an ASAP report, which is an aviation safety action program. Yeah, ASAP. And so now the airlines collect their own data, and then the airlines automatically file a report with NASA on behalf of whoever turned that report in. So, and let me, this is just a parallel that I'll try to draw here. Imagine we're a culture that kills 40,000 people every year on a highway. Think about a time when you made an honest mistake in an automobile, like maybe you ran through a stop sign and you didn't realize it. Imagine if you could report that to somebody, it would be. We have a terrible intersection close to my house here. It's one of the top 5 fatal intersections in the Phoenix area. Think about if we had a system like this where they could glean from people who went through there and didn't get killed in the intersection. If they could write down, this happened to me and yada, 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 instead of having to wait until we kill 6 people in there to do something about it. So that's probably not a one-to-one comparison, but it's on the same order of what this has done for aviation. And that's one of the reasons, in addition to technology, why airlines are so safe. I wanted to say that because we're going to go on to talk about some stuff that you're going to say, oh yeah, well, how come this is happening? So we're going to try to do that. But it helps us identify anomalies, or whether it's something as an anomaly or a trend. So I got 3 slides here talking about the main categories that they found in this report. They found actual substance abuse and negligence. Okay, and I'm not going to say that I'm excited or would condone hearing this, but hey, these are human beings, and forget about the stress of being a controller. Just being a human being, where you work, probably that almost every major company has an abuse program. And that's a big part of our culture right now. But these are the problems that they identified: substance abuse and negligence, safety complaints, increased mistakes, all this. And again, remember the staffing shortages, and all of these were grouped as a sub part of the staffing shortages, which were causing all this. And for the current fiscal year, the FAA sought $117 million to train controllers and hire 1,800 new ones. Yet training is difficult, and many aspiring controllers fail. I had a cousin who was an Air Force controller. He was rated as a controller in the military. He left the Air Force. His hope was that he would get a job with the FAA, and he washed out. It's a very, very difficult program, and I had an opportunity to go to the facility once. There's only one training facility that's in Oklahoma City right now. That's another issue. They're putting money. They're trying to start a second issue or a facility so they can train twice as many people. But one of the things that they pointed out is typically pilots don't make good controllers. There's a different mindset to doing this, and I know I wouldn't. I would not. That's not a job that I would like to have. But there are. Okay, so then it moves on in the report talking about health risks. Obviously, the long hours, the stress, and things like that, they add up, regardless of whether you develop a psychological or a substance abuse problem in that. The training challenges, training air traffic controllers is difficult. That's what we know for sure. And I think it's like a 50% washout rate, isn't it, Eric?
I'm sure it's at least that.
So I shouldn't say that, but it's really high. And it's not just that they don't pass the final exam. It's all along the way. People recognize this is not the job. This is not the career for me. And Diane's going to read an article here at the end that talks about some of the measures that they're actively pursuing now to try to get other people out there. Working conditions. Controllers have reported working in deteriorating facilities where the place isn't a good place to work. And in addition to the fact that the stressful hours and things like that, and you need to work in a place that's conducive to some kind of well-being and self-satisfaction there. Let's see. This is, and the last thing talking about identify the problems, the personal impact that this has on people. In many areas, the safety threats and the near collision incidents, which we have had called our attention by some of you all out there, and in news articles where we've had some near, they call them near misses. I don't know what a better word would be, but anyway. And right now, one of the things that they're doing to fill the gap is controllers are working at 40% of the facilities for 6 to 8 weeks. And you can't do that forever. They have some. I know they have rigid requirements. They can only work if they're working on the scopes, which is, I'll bring this next slide in here. This is what an air traffic controller's radar scope looks like if he's in the radar room. These are separate from the guys that work in the tower, or the guys and gals who work in the tower. And every one of those little marks on there has some sort of significance to it. And you can see the ones with writing. That's one of the advances, fortunately, over years ago, where now it tags each little target. Those are all airplanes and traffic down there, and it targets them with specific information that helps the controller. And basically, it's got a vector. It shows which way it's going, how fast, and things like that. But they can only work for, I think, a couple hours, then they got to take a break.
If that, I was thinking more than once an hour for at least.
Maybe like a 50-minute hour, like a if you were a student or something like that.
Just to get off the tube. Yeah.
So, see, these are some of the general recommendations. Obviously, increasing staffing levels is at the top. And improving the training programs, and not only the program, but to get this other facility built. And I don't know where that's at. I know that they're clamoring for it. They've been trying to get that for a long time. Improving, upgrading the facilities, probably the break rooms and things like that. Better health support, certainly mental health support. I'm sure that's a problem in our culture. We're reluctant to provide that for people, and revising the work schedules to reduce fatigue and stress, which are really the bigger part of the problems. And you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to save this slide for just a minute, and I'm going to ask Diane. You had that, if you would talk about that, and then we'll talk about Buttigieg. He's been in the news lately. So.
Well, this is just an article that was published on the official FAA website of Thursday, August the 24th. And it said the FAA has hired 1,500 air traffic controllers and met its 2023 goal needed to continue rebuilding its training pipeline. The agency also announced that it now has approximately 2,600 controllers being trained at facilities across the country. Many of these controllers are already certified to safely work some air traffic positions as they continue training on others. New controllers, as Ron said, start their career at the FAA's Academy in Oklahoma City. After graduating, they relocate to one of the FAA's hundreds of ATC facilities. There they begin training to become certified on specific airspace positions for that facility. So terminal radar approach control, TRACON, or en route center. Certification varies from 18 to 24 months, depending on the airspace complexity. So that just talks about the numbers of people that are in the pipeline. And when you become an ATC controller, you guys know far better than I am. I'm just gleaning from this article that you're kind of trained specific for that location.
Oh, exactly. So it's like if you get a BS out of college, now you got to find somebody who's going to hire you and make that BS meaningful in their employment. Gotcha. And so the 18 to 24 months, you go to a facility like even Phoenix, the big Atlanta, Phoenix, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, those Southern California, those facilities, you might have to be monitored for 2 years by somebody before you're fully certified. Right. So what I want to hope to do is inspire a little bit of confidence in people out there. So once they make it, it's a very, very long process to do that. And if you got friends and neighbors' kids, and I would say basically if you're a little geeky, this would probably be something that they might look into. I think they're pretty well paid overall. Of course, they're probably not as paid as well as you can become if you get the next new game, in electronics, but nonetheless. And I wanted to just for a minute, this is an article that we found here with just recently. Diane was telling me about this, or reminded me of this, they signed into a bipartisan infrastructure law back in 2021. But again, I don't want to harp on Congress and the dysfunctionality of all that, but that's been a problem not just in the current Congresses, but Eric and I, as long as we've been in the industry, we were talking before here. When you go to the airport, if you look at your ticket and you look at all the fees that are charged, there's a big chunk that goes into did we remember the name, Eric? The Airport Reserve Fund or something like that.
Some General Airport Improvement Fund, or a weird name like that.
And it's targeted for money, but for years people would complain that the FAA wouldn't release these funds. They wouldn't spend the money and all that,
Billions and billions of dollars, and then Congress or the Appropriations Committee go, well, we're going to hold that in reserve because we can hold that and make our balance sheet look better. Like we need that money. That's why it was paid in, but they would hold it.
So this is an opportunity, bipartisan. Write your congressman, doesn't matter what party, and tell them spend some money to get some more controllers out there and upgrade the facilities, because then you can see that would be directly improve some of the conditions out there. And it's not like we don't know a lot more about human performance anymore, about human factors. We know what it takes to make people competent, and how you keep them competent, and how you need to protect them from long, drab and dreary work schedules, like what some of the controllers are probably faced with right now. And so this really, it's a really deep reaching problem. And so we wanted to do that. And I wanted to go to the last slide that I had here. Let me pull that up if I can find it.
While you pull that up, I just want to also mention that we talk a lot about what's going on in the airline industry and aviation, and if that does bring up your anxiety, because I saw a couple of comments, oh my God, that I don't know if that helps me. What I'm trying to say here is what you are experiencing, that anxiety that is coming up maybe as a response to what we're sharing, you have to still remember there are 4,000, 5,000, almost 5,000 planes taking off and landing every day in the US alone. And
over 100,000 worldwide.
And over 100,000 worldwide. And we really are talking about how to optimize it. Yeah, it's not optimal, but I just checked it. It's between 250,000 people and 500,000 people are killed by medical errors in the US. That's the latest John Hopkins number. And I think we've mentioned that before, that actually the AMA has started to implement some of the measures from the aviation industry in order to help with getting off, the podium, so to speak, as the third leading cause of death in the U.S. So and perfect timing, Dieter, because these are the takeaways. All right. So what is in this for you? We didn't do this to terrorize you. We did this to be honest and straightforward and tell you we're aware of it. But think about how many, this is another opportunity. Your fear of flying has nothing to do with even the controller issues. There are risks involved in flying airplanes. The point is that the risk in flying airplanes is so well managed, despite the flaws, that's why we typically don't kill people every year. All right. Whereas in this country alone, we'll kill 40,000 people on the highway. So try to keep that up front. Your brain doesn't want to process that because it doesn't think of probabilities. It thinks of possibilities. So when I say your odds of dying in a plane crash in a tier 1 air carrier is 1 in 33.2 million, you didn't say 0, Ron. You said 1 in. And so we all have a little bit of arrogance thinking that we'll be that one person. So, but the real deal about this is the takeaway for you. It's another opportunity for you to bear down and figure out whether you're going to obsess over this or any of the other things that you do if you have a general anxiety disorder, or whether you're going to learn how to let go of them. Because there's so many more areas of your life beyond aviation that you have issues with. Knowledge is power, and knowing is better than not knowing, and certainly better than not knowing what you didn't know before. So while it's not comforting at face value to see the problems out there,
it is comforting to me to know that at least we know on some level the scope of the problems, and it makes people more vigilant. And the other areas think about the other areas of your life where you trust other people completely outside your control, because control is the issue, of course, in aviation, that for your health and well-being to behave responsibly, and you take it for granted. Okay. And so while news and information, news may not be comforting at first glance, awareness of the problem is a necessary first step to solving it. And so we strive to be, like I said, be open and transparent about what it's really like out there. And you can't deny, I don't save for the incidents that happen, and they will continue to happen as long as there's human beings involved. But it's still the safest way to travel. So worry about aviation. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to, Tracy is saying, do the ATCs have access to like some kind of mental health or, something, if they have substance abuse issues and stuff like that? I'm going to say,
for sure, they're government employees, so they have a government subsidized healthcare programs. However, lots of people have those, but don't use them, right? Because now they become human beings, regardless of the fact that they have specialized training and specialized purpose. Now they've got to go through all the issues, denial, if it's alcohol and drug related, family stress, they're all married, gosh knows what this does to a marriage, when somebody's working 6 days a week instead of 5 and comes home and wants to kick the family dog every night when he comes home, to start with. So the answer to that question is they for sure have health care benefits, but it's you got the same problem you do with other groups of people in our culture, and that is whether they use them or not.
And I don't know it for the US ATC, but I do know, for example, all of our emergency care workers up here in Canada, there's a mandatory, they have to come in once a month, and basically they get informed about all the things available to them, because the people do recognize that these are extremely stressful jobs, and exactly what Ron said, we're still human beings at the same time. And Tracy said, I meant, does the ATC support them specifically, thus making it easier come out of denial? Well, that's what I can tell you, at least in Canada, I can say for sure that, emergency personnel, gets the opportunity once a month, and it's paid. So it's not like, you have to go there on your own time, and dime.
And Tracy, think of supervisors that you've had, you've got some that, come on, suck it up and get your stuff together, and we have a whole spectrum of people involved in this industry that vary from very supportive to probably not supportive at all. Probably they need some of the interventions themselves, but who knows, So I actually tried, I know secondhand a controller now. I used to know a lot of them because at the airline that I taught at, we had a relationship with the tower here. But I'm going to call back down there because they have a public relations office. We'll see if we can get somebody to come on here and add that to that. That would be That'd a really awesome. Good. Yeah, it'd be a real good addition to add, because they could answer a lot more of these questions, and we'll promise to be nice to them anyway. So, all right.
Well, it'd be super amazing what it'd be like an hour in their shoes.
Yeah. Bring some pictures and stories and stuff like that. So that'd be great. Any other questions, Dieter, that have popped up?
No, that's about it. I saw earlier that Dawn is flying to the Caribbean in 2 weeks from DC. So Dawn, if you're still with us, I hope that you have an awesome vacation there.
Yeah.
Okay, and we are...
Flying is the easy part of your vacation.
Want to make sure that again, we shout out for the next live monthly group coaching webinar is going to be December 21st. I don't have it up here, but 21st at 6 to 8 p.m., 6:30 to 8 p.m.
Yes.
Pacific time, 9:30 to 11 p.m. on the East Coast there. And so we would look forward to anybody and everybody. It's growing in popularity. I do believe that is where the future is for Fearless Flight. You need to stay connected until such time as you don't think about the airplane all the time when you go flying. And we're having people like Miguel. I'll shout out in the blind to Miguel again. We've got people like Miguel that are living proof that you can not only get over this, but you can get to the point where you can actually publicly speak while you're talking about the accomplishments that you've achieved. So anyway, thanks everybody. We'll see you again next week. Thanks to Diane and Eric and Dieter as well. We appreciate you all showing up. It's our pleasure to serve you, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Bye-bye.
Don't let me beat Navy.